This episode of Scare You to Sleep is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. You've heard the theories. You know the signs. But what if you encountered the first contact? On October 31st, Focus Features presents Begonia, the new film directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Two conspiracy theorists are convinced that a high-powered CEO isn't just running a corporation. She's behind an elaborate operation to end the planet. Critics and audiences around the world are buzzing about Begonia. It's wild, bloody, and brilliant, and a big screen spectacle. Jesse Plemons is an absolute force of nature, and Emma Stone proves why she's one of the finest actors of her generation. The closer they get to the truth, the stranger it becomes. From Yorgos Lanthimos, director of Poor Things and The Favorite, comes the most provocative movie of the year. Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons star in Begonia. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent. In select theaters October 24th. In theaters everywhere October 31st. Happy Halloween, and welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to read you some true stories from your fellow listeners. I don't think there's any need for chit-chat. Let's just dive right in. Because first up, we have a Halloween tale from Adam. 1999-ish, Phoenix, Arizona. Autumnal Phoenix is not the picturesque Halloween of New England or the Pacific Northwest. No changing leaves or cool weather, just a bit less hot and much earlier sunset. Unlike many places I have lived, Phoenix is unafraid of streetlights, a safe counter to the dark of twilight. With this, I don't know what time any of what I am about to tell you took place, but it was October, and aside from streetlights and outdoor floodlights, it was dark. As latchkey kids, me, my brother, and our friend David were intentionally breaking the rules. We should have been in David's living room, eating snacks and watching a movie or playing a game on his PlayStation. Instead, someone, probably my brother, egged us on to explore. And so explore is what we did. The labyrinthian buildings that made up David's apartment complex led us around to the point where we weren't sure where we were. But it was quiet, and it felt like we three were the only awakes awake, the only ones present. Looking back, it felt like we were the only ones alive. Soon this quiet was interrupted by the signature sound of a rubber ball bouncing on pavement. Somewhere ahead of us, someone was playing, and my brother was determined to expand our trio. We came round a building and realized we had somehow made it to the parking lot at the back of the complex, and standing beneath a cone of light was a little girl, bouncing a yellow rubber ball. I remembered the cold fear that prickled my skin. Why was this kid out here by herself? She may have been about my age, 8 or 9, but I was with my older brother and friend. She was just out here by herself in a floofy dress and Mary Jane's. As a certified scaredy cat, I was already over it. But since the only thing my brother was scared of was being called a pussy, he called out to her, "Hey!" As his voice stretched across the 30 or so feet, the bouncing ball stopped.
"Hi, will you play with me?"
I remember how still she was in that moment, holding the ball with both hands, not towards us or against herself, just holding it up. "Let's go." I don't know if I said this out loud, but I know I grabbed for my brother's arm. "Sure." To my dismay, my brother started to walk forward. After a few steps, the girl began to bounce her ball, and the lights went out. She disappeared in the sudden black. My brother stopped moving. The ball stopped bouncing. The lights came back on.
"Play with me."
This time it was a demand. David and I were statues as my brother took a few hesitant steps forward, and the ball bounced with his steps, and the lights went out. Oh, hell no. My brother began to back away as the ball stopped bouncing, and the light came back on.
"Play with me."
She sounded on the verge of tears. "Book it." I don't know if this was my brother or David, it didn't matter. We were all running. Our shoes beat a frantic response to the echoing bounce of an oversized rubber ball.
"Why won't you play with me?"
Her voice was loud and felt closer than it should have, but we kept moving. We ran hard. My memory gets fuzzy here. I don't know how long we were running or how we ended up on a darkened path between two apartment buildings. There we stood, hand on our knees, gasping for breath and babbling at each other some variant of, "What the hell was that?" When a familiar voice called out to us. "Boys? David?" David's mom called from behind us, back the way we had come from. We all scrambled to the side of the path, deeper into the shadows. "David, come here!" It was her voice, but it was wrong. Wrong enough that we froze, not breathing or saying anything. My brother was the one to look. I didn't want to. I watched my brother. My eyes were glued to him as he slowly leaned out away from the wall and looked for where the voice was coming from. I watched as his face fell and cracked with fear. It was the first time, maybe the only time, I had ever seen my brother afraid. "Run!" he yelled, panicked, and we did. We ran, none of us looking back, none of us speaking, just shoes on pavement and heavy breaths. We found David's apartment. It was ground level, and we hopped over the little porch wall. Some relief in relative safety. We hid in David's room until our moms made it back from night school. A couple weeks later, while trick-or-treating, we tried to find the little girl. We tried to retrace her steps and find that spot. We never did. P.S. My brother never said what he saw. When we asked that night, he wouldn't tell us. Later, he would say nothing or make something up, like he saw a little boy with a knife or something like that. Last time I asked him, this was a few years ago, he said he doesn't remember much from that night at all. I'm not sure what this encounter was, but it was scary. It has been so long that I can't promise my imagination hasn't affected my retelling, but I can promise this is exactly how I remember it happening. Thank you, Adam. What a great way to kick off this episode. A spooky little girl demanding you play with her, and a mimicking someone's mother. Ooh, I love it. Let's move on to Geraint, who, by the way, sent me a pronunciation guide for his name. Thank you so much. And it sent me on a rabbit hole for the folklore figure of the Arthurian legend Geraint. I wasn't that familiar with that, with him. And I'm not really familiar with the Arthurian legend, actually, and I realize that's a little bit of a blind spot in my folklore / history, because some of it's like real, right? See, I need to get more into it. So thank you for sending in a story, and thank you for your name. All right. Hi, Shelby. Thank you for your podcast. It's become my new favorite since I found it a few months ago in helping me drift off to sleep. Thank you. I have a short story to share with you, which my wife and I still tell friends to this day. It's the only thing that's ever happened to us that we just can't explain. To put some context into the story for you, my wife and I at the time were both serving in the Royal Air Force. We are not believers in the paranormal, and our approach to life, being both military, can be very direct, as you might imagine. It was September of 2022, and we were on holiday in Cornwall. I remember the holiday particularly well because Queen Elizabeth II died while we were there, and it was all over the news, and being military, we were on standby to be called back in case her death resulted in any duties required of us for ceremonial purposes. My wife Rachel was 6 months pregnant with our second child, and our son Thomas was nearly 3 years old. Cornwall is a beautiful county in the southwest of England, and Rachel loves the beach, which Cornwall has in abundance, so we often head there for a break over the summer. We were staying on the south coast in a tiny hamlet, maybe only 7 or 8 small cottages there and a beach. The cottage we were renting was a 2-bedroom home, and we had a wonderful time there. My toddler would sleep in the first room you could access as you reached the top of the stairs. We slept in the room opposite across the corridor. The way the bedrooms were laid out meant that while I was laying down in my room, I had a direct line of sight across the corridor to Thomas's room. He liked to have his door closed when going to bed, and generally we had our door ajar so we could listen if Thomas cried in the night or wanted either me or his mum. The door handle to his room was a doorknob type that you would have to twist to open the door. We would wince trying to close it because it made an awful squeaking sound, and we would worry it might wake Thomas up when we checked on him. We had long gotten rid of the baby monitors by this point. It was our last 2 nights in the cottage after spending nearly 2 weeks there. I can't remember if my wife and I were asleep or not when this happened, but we both heard it. The unmistakable sound of Thomas's bedroom door handle turning. This in itself wasn't a cause for concern. I'd assumed he had woken up and was trying to leave his room and see us. He would do this on occasion. I got out of bed and opened my door to make the short walk across the corridor to see him. I was surprised to see the door to his room was still closed. I thought he must have gone back to his bed when he maybe struggled to open the door. It would have been quite tricky for small toddler hands and his height. I went in anyway, wincing at the sound of the doorknob turning. I was taken aback to see that he was absolutely fast asleep. I'm talking one leg out of the blanket and drool out of his mouth type of sleep, not that of a toddler who has hurried back to bed. Now, I was concerned not because my mind went to something paranormal, but because I thought we now had an intruder in the cottage. I immediately searched the whole cottage, as said it was tiny and didn't take me too long. I checked wardrobes, cupboards, and for signs of forced entry, you name it, I checked it. I could find nothing out of the ordinary. I then turned every door handle in the cottage, trying to replicate the sound in case it came from somewhere else. No matter what I tried, the only place that sound came from was my child's bedroom doorknob. I would have then placed it down to a dream had it not been for the noise also making my wife sit up in bed at the same time as me. I spent the rest of that night laying in my bed with my door wide open, looking down at his door. It freaked my wife and I out. We nearly went home early the next morning, but decided to spend our last night there. It was so strange. Thank you for reading this, and stay safe. I'm looking forward to working my way through your back catalog. All the best, Geraint. These are the types of experiences I speak pretty frequently about on the show. Maybe it's been a while, though, where they're so simple, but they're so inexplicable, and it's hard almost to tell other people about them because they're so simple, and thus those who were not in the room, I feel like can feel pretty confident in explaining it away for you. But I believe that this was something that was truly chilling. I mean, you said you still talk about it years later, and neither of you are much into the paranormal. You're not believers in the paranormal. And I'm sure a lot of people listening even are explaining it away already. But I will say, it's these small moments that are the most interesting to me, more interesting to me than even the apparitions in the hallway and I don't know. It's hard to explain. Sure, those are very fascinating, but I don't know. There's something about these small moments that happen to people who aren't believers, who cannot explain what happened, and who can't even really put into words the chilling nature of it at the time. I mean, not that you did a bad job putting your experience into words. I don't mean that. But I understand why this would have been so, I don't know, eerie. Yeah, eerie, because you're both very level-headed people, and this must have been really creepy. So thank you for sharing. These next few are from Graham. Hey Shelby, how's it going? I've always enjoyed all these true horror episodes, and it always gets me thinking of the supernatural experiences I've had in my life. I've had a range of different experiences, some more sinister than others. Some happened in just a blink, while others made time slow. I'll write a few of them here in no particular order, but they are the ones that have stuck with me the most. Shadows and shapes. One of the more frequent experiences I have are catching a glimpse of something, a shadow or a shape, something I know shouldn't be there, but doesn't always feel sinister. For the shadows, they're usually something I see or feel when I'm waking up. I've seen shapes standing over me, familiar and not, always disappearing when I turn the light on. Some, the exaggerated human shapes, always make me feel uneasy. But I'd also see shapes that looked like my grandparents watching over me. One that would bring back visions of them checking in on me as I slept at their place, me pretending to sleep, peeking over the sheets. But I've also seen shapes that make me jump out of bed. At friends' cottages, I woke up feeling something in the bed with me, hearing a rattle and jumping when I saw the shape of a rattlesnake in the bed with me. Quickly jumping out of bed, I grabbed my phone to turn on the light, only to find my bed empty. I've seen the shape of an 8-legged creature the size of a basketball, undulating on the ceiling above my couch where I was napping, again disappearing when I turned on the light. As I'm writing this, I realize it might explain why I like to sleep in pitch darkness, because then I can't see the shadows. For the shapes and figures, I often see people standing behind me or around me, that when I turn to look at them, they aren't there. It's happened so often that I find I only turn to look at them if they approach me. One of these events stand out in my mind in particular. I was at work at a large factory where we wore white uniforms. I was working in the back, cleaning painted parts in the machine we had, which was a decent job because you got to drive around the plant, collecting the parts to clean, then go in the back by yourself and use the machine. People would take advantage of being alone back there and play on their phones to pass the time, which wasn't allowed. On this particular day, I was doing just that when I noticed someone standing behind me in a white uniform, arms crossed, ready to give it to me for being on my phone. Panicking, I shoved my phone in my pocket, tried to think of my best excuse as to why I was on my phone, but it died on my lips when I turned around because no one was there. Broken glass. This is probably one of the most sinister experiences I've had. I was in my early 20s, and I was up at my cottage with my friend, my brother, my dad, and his friend. It was getting late, probably around 1 a.m., and I decided to go lay down in the other cabin, where I was sharing a room with my friend, and just listen to the noises of the forest as I drifted off to sleep. Everyone else was playing a board game my dad invented when he was a kid. Only 4 people could play, so I opted out and read. So I said my goodnights and headed up to the cabin, taking a flashlight from above the door as I left. I walked out into the screened-off porch, greeted by the chippering of insects and frogs, the hooting of owls, and the gentle rustle of the leaves of the surrounding trees. I took a moment when I stepped outside to look up and admire the night sky, free of the light pollution of the cities. It was a clear night, and the moon was a sliver, so the stars stole the sky that night. Breathing deep, I walked the short distance to the cabin and headed straight back to the back room we call the hubcap room, and placed the flashlight on the small shelf above my bed, lighting up the room. Our cottage runs on propane, though a tank wasn't hooked up to the cabin. I looked around at all the animal pictures taped to the wall, the old empty bottles lining the shelves around the room, and the hubcaps hanging on nails all over the room. I stripped down to my boxers, climbed into the sleeping bag on my bed, and shut the flashlight off. Laying on my side, I grabbed one of my pillows and placed it between my legs, and rested my head on the other pillow. I wiggled around until I got comfortable, took a deep breath, and it was forced out of me. I felt a heavy pressure push against my face that I quickly recognized to be a hand, and then something, screamed something unintelligible into my ear. The voice got louder and the hand pushed harder, and it felt like my face was being pushed into broken glass. I couldn't do anything. It was as though I had sleep paralysis, though I was certain I hadn't fallen asleep. I couldn't scream, couldn't move my body, and the room was so dark, I couldn't see a thing. And just as quickly as it happened, the pressure stopped, and I shot right up, sweating and panting. Sitting in the bed, I grabbed the flashlight, turned it on, and looked around the room, finding nothing. I put my hand to my face, expecting gore and blood, but it was fine. It took me about 5 minutes to calm my breathing, and I sat there with my knees in my arms for about 15 minutes, until I heard the cottage door close and my friend come to the cabin. I had a hard time falling asleep that night, but nothing like that has ever happened since, though it still haunts me to this day. When I think about it, I can still feel the broken glass against my face. Silence. This is a short one, but odd. I woke up one morning. It was probably around 10 in the morning, and it was when I was living with my mom, my room in the basement. I heard her and the dog puttering around above me, and then I heard a loud bang. It didn't come from above me or even in the house, but it came from all around, and there was complete and absolute silence. I had thought I had gone deaf, but that was the least of my worries because I noticed everything began to slant. I mean everything. My desk was across from my bed, my laptop open, books and odds and ends littered the massive desk, framed pictures adorned the walls, and I could even see my lazy boy from where I was laying. My room was an L shape, my living area around the bend from my sleeping area, and everything slanted, probably about 10 degrees, but not a lot. But everything slanted, and for about 2 minutes I sat there deaf and confused, wondering why the books weren't falling over. Then there was another bang, and everything went back to normal. I ripped my phone off my headboard and texted my mom, asking her what the fuck just happened, and she responded by asking what I was talking about. I said nothing, put my phone down, and laid back down until I fell asleep. Bedtime haunting. Another of the more frequent experiences I have are from 2, possibly more beings, but more times than I can count, and anywhere I've gone to sleep, I often feel a depression at the end of my bed, and when I look up, I see nothing. I've even noticed depressions on the bed, sometimes that of a person, and sometimes 4 little ones, like a cat jumped on the bed. This inspired a short story attached to the email also. It never feels like anything malicious, rather the opposite, and I believe it's just one of my grandmothers, or cats, checking in on me. Haunted hotel. The summer after I graduated university, I worked at a hotel near my cottage as a nighttime security guard, and after starting there, I found out it was haunted. Once I found out, I asked around about it, read a couple books that had stories about it in there, and was hoping to experience something myself. I can't say whether or not I did experience anything, but some odd things did happen while I was there. And I only think these 2 events might have something to do with the hauntings because they both happened on different days. But shortly after I had talked about the hauntings with a guest, telling them I hadn't experienced a thing. The first time it happened, I was sitting on a couch in the lobby talking to a guest and my coworker at the front desk, both of us telling the guest what we've heard, but that we've seen nothing. I stood up from the couch to go and do my rounds, and just as I stepped away, the massive framed painting behind me fell onto the couch right where I was sitting. And when I looked at it, nothing was broken. Screw and hanger still intact, no reason it should have fallen, unless someone, or something, took it off the wall. The second time, it was probably around midnight, and a drunk guest has come back from the bar asking about ghosts. Once he was gone, I sat behind the desk and started to watch MASH, when the fire alarm started blaring. All the guests rushed out, last one coming out as the firemen arrived. They went in, checked all the rooms, and when they gave the okay for everyone to go back, they told me that there was no reason why the fire alarm was going off. Almost as though the ghost did it, just to let us know it was there. Ghosts in a church. The last true horror experience I have to tell today is one that has the most witnesses and had the most responses from a ghost, if that's what it was. It was Thanksgiving, around 2010. I was in my early 20s, and my dad, 3 siblings, sister-in-law, and niece were going to visit my grandmother and have dinner. She was living in a nursing home, and because she was once a minister with the United Church, one of the churches allowed us to use a room in there to host dinner. So after dinner, my brother and I were walking around exploring. Both being huge fans of supernatural, we thought the same thing. If we're going to find a ghost anywhere, it'll be here. So we were walking to the room where they give the sermons. The doors we came through brought us in behind the pews, with the stage and podium on the other side of the room from us. We walked into the carpeted room and said, "If there's a ghost in here, give us a sign." We walked further into the room and stopped just before the pews, repeating the phrase. We then heard feet walking on carpet going towards the stage. We looked at each other and neither of us was moving. We asked again for a sign and we heard a bang from the stage and some feedback in the speaker in the right corner of the room. I said, "Must be feedback in the microphone, someone left it on." We walked up to the stage to check, and all the cupboards were locked. Nothing could have made the bang noise, and the microphone was off. We walked back to the center of the room, asked for another sign, and feedback sounded in the speaker in the right corner again. Before we could investigate, my older brother came into the room with my sister, and he was carrying my 2-year-old niece. We told them what was happening, and they both scoffed at us, being skeptics. But we asked again for a sign, and we heard feedback in that same speaker. And just before they could come up with some reasoning for it, my niece looked towards the corner, waved, said hi, and began to laugh. Laughing at random corners and waving was not something she normally did, and we all know what they say about babies and spirits. So we all looked at each other and, in silence, filed out of the room and decided it was time to go home. So nothing too crazy has happened, and not a whole lot has happened to me recently. Not sure if it's because I have too much on my mind and am too busy, so I'm not paying attention, or what, but I'm sure I'm going to experience things in the near future. My 2-year-old son has been telling my wife and I, and anyone who will listen, about the monsters that live in our vents, and the ghost that lives in his crib with him. And you know what they say about children and spirits. I don't know about you, but I've spent way too much of my life feeling scattered and not good enough for the world, agonizing over all the shoulds, wondering what I should be doing more of or should be doing less of, and how my life should be. I often speak of the tools I use to help combat these feelings, and Calm is one of them. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation, and it's here to make you feel better. If you're like me and sometimes you need a little help with navigating life's ups and downs, I highly recommend Calm's sessions. They have guided meditations, grounding exercises, sleep stories, and sleep meditations. Some of them are even just a couple of minutes long for when you need to close your eyes for a second and have a soothing voice recenter you during the day. Their sleep meditations are absolutely beautiful, and they have these gorgeous soundscapes that truly take you to another world. Calm your mind, change your life. Calm has an exclusive offer just for listeners of my show. Get 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/SYTS. This is an amazing value. Go to calm.com/SYTS for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. Calm.com/SYTS, and tell Calm you heard about them from me. This episode of Scare You to Sleep is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. Thank you so much for all those stories. One I have in common with you is the feeling someone or something sit on the bed. I've always kind of written it off as just one of those weird little tricks your mind plays on you, just like when you feel like you're falling. Because I get that a lot, like a lot. And, living alone, I guess I have to tell myself that because there have been so many times where I swear I feel like my cat has jumped on the bed and she has not. Or I feel like someone's sat next to me in the bed. And it happens to me everywhere, not just here where I live. So that's why I always kind of write it off as just something my brain is playing tricks on me about, or my body, because I swear I physically feel someone sit on the bed. And so I don't know what that is. If anyone knows, if it's something akin to the effect where you feel like you're falling, let me know, because it does. There are some nights it gets me and it freaks me out a little bit. So I think that's one of the reasons I sleep with a hoard of pillows. I sleep with no less than 4 pillows every night, because I have one that I rest my head on, one that goes right up against my back, one that I put between my knees, and then another I put between like my ankles. I guess I should just get one of those like pregnancy pillows, those big long ones. Probably, but it's fine. But yeah, I sleep in like a fort of pillows, and I wonder if part of it is me like protecting myself from anything sneaking up behind me, because I'm a side sleeper, so I don't know. Well, now that you know the intimate details of exactly how I sleep every night, let's move on. This is from Cassie. My friends have always been very spiritual. I gave it a go, as any teenage girl with a friend group of people slightly older and spiritual would. Sometimes the practices scared me a little, which I won't get into, but my best friend Ashley has always been spiritual and involved in such practices. Ashley has always been my safe person, since the day we met at my first job to this very day. It's become a joke that she is actually so comfortable to me, I have to use the bathroom whenever I'm around her. Maybe that's gross, but it shows how much my body, mind, and soul relax when I'm in her presence. Ashley always had the coolest and most interesting spiritual tools, from crystals and tarot cards to offerings and, of course, Ouija boards. Once we were both out on our own, we would have fun, spooky adventures exploring the spooky old prison, walking through graveyards, anything to get our goosebumps bumping. Ashley lived in an apartment with her boyfriend and roommate at the time. I myself was always shy to boys, and although the roommate and I clearly had our innocent crush, he was more a friend to me. One day, Ashley and I were in her room just being girls. When she had to go out for a moment, she said, "Please don't touch any of that stuff over there for your own good." Now, if this was recent, Ashley would know what she always says now about me and has learned from being my friend for so long. You're going to do whatever you want to do, no matter what anyone says. And she was always right about that. I've made some mistakes with my impulsive choices, that's for sure. But no matter the advice I'm given or asking for, I'm going to do what I was going to do in the beginning. So yes, I picked up the pendulum and held it over the Ouija board, watching it gently swing and sparkle in the light from the window. Pretty, I thought to myself, thinking nothing of it and sitting it back where she placed it like a small child who used her older sister's lipstick. She came back in the room and went on with our day. Later that evening, she was watching a movie in her room with her boyfriend, and I was laying on the pull-out couch in the living room, besides her roommate, listening to his absurd thoughts about the world, wishing he would fall asleep and just stop talking. But suddenly, the room became cold, and I felt strange, like waking up on a brisk, cold fall morning where you forgot to close your window. But then, it got worse. Suddenly, I felt something wrap around my ankle that was hanging over the end of the pull couch. It felt dry and bony, and the fingers seemed so long and wrapped around my ankle with no problems reaching to the other side. In seconds, I was jolted down the couch about a foot or so with a scream of terror. But my brain didn't even comprehend the full experience until I realized I yelled Ashley's boyfriend's name, thinking he was playing a joke on me, like he had times before. That's when Ashley and her boyfriend opened the closed bedroom door and looked at me fully confused. I looked up to see her roommate in the same spot he had been before, looking at me confused and clearly scared himself. I quickly pulled myself back up on the pull-out couch and realized that whatever pulled my ankle truly couldn't have been any of them. They were all too far away or too close, and certainly didn't have long, dry, bony fingers. I explained what happened to everyone when my best friend's roommate confirmed that I had been pulled down the bed in an unexplainable way. Ashley let out a deep sigh. "Cassie, did you touch the Ouija board I warned you not to touch?" "Well, yeah, I did," I replied, ashamed and realizing what I'd done. Luckily, nothing some sage cleanses and years of a clear quartz crystal necklace couldn't help. Not without some interesting run-ins with unexplainable events, of course. So fair warning, listen to your spiritual friends when they tell you not to touch something, or something might just touch back. That is a good warning. Also, don't touch stuff. When someone asks you clearly not to touch, I'm very Virgo when it comes to stuff like that. I've had to set strict, I mean, I don't mind people touching my certain things, but if I specifically tell you not to touch something, it's probably for your own good, or I don't want you to break it. Don't do it. See what happens? You get yanked by ghosts. So, ghost yanking upon your households if you touch other people's stuff when they tell you not to. Okay, thank you so much, Cassie. That was really creepy. I can't imagine what it would feel like to be yanked like that. That's crazy. This is from Andrea. I apologize if I got the intonation of your name wrong. I've spoken on the show before about certain names like Andrea and Carolyn, where sometimes it's the same spelling, but it's pronounced Andrea or Caroline, and there are different ways to pronounce them with the same spelling. So I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly. Andrea or Andrea. Thank you. Hey Shelby, I've been a huge fan of your show for a few years now. I've been wanting to share this for a while, but I'm afraid you might think it's fake. But I promise it's very real. I live in southwestern Ontario, Canada, about 3 hours from Toronto. His mom, boyfriend, she says later. His mom is a very superstitious woman, and so am I. I've always had a love for all things spooky and supernatural. Her and I both believe a spirit lives in the house. Just to note, the house was built in the late 1960s. Now, on to my story. This happened about a year ago now at my boyfriend's house. I was in the bathroom upstairs, and my boyfriend was in the kitchen downstairs. I was just finishing up when I heard his voice from outside the door. He said, "Are you almost done?" I said, "Yes, just washing my hands." When I opened the door, he wasn't there. I went downstairs and asked if he talked to me. He said no. I just assumed I was hallucinating from my borderline personality disorder, which has happened before. I brushed it off and forgot about it. A few weeks later, it happened again. I was again in the bathroom when my boyfriend's voice on the other side of the door said, "I see you." I laughed it off and opened the door to an empty hallway. Again, my boyfriend was downstairs and had no idea what I was talking about. A few more weeks later, it happened a third time. I was in the bathroom and I heard heavy breathing from outside the door. I assumed my boyfriend was standing there waiting to scare me. I opened the door and once again, greeted with an empty hallway. But this time, a picture fell off the wall. I looked around to see if maybe my boyfriend was hiding, but instead, I saw a tall, black figure pressed against the wall. It was so tall it was hunched over. It was a ghostly black and kinda hazy looking. It had bright white glowing eyes and long fingers. I saw it, walked halfway down the stairs, turned around, and went back up to the stairs because I couldn't believe what I saw. It was still there when I went back up the stairs. I ran downstairs and told my boyfriend. He didn't believe me. Until one day, a few weeks later, we were watching TV in his room, which is upstairs next to the bathroom, and his voice came from the hallway. We looked at each other, then looked at the door in complete disbelief. The last encounter I had, I was talking to my boyfriend's mom in her room. We were folding laundry when we heard whistling from down the hall. We were the only people home. Whatever lives in the house also likes to open cupboards and doors. The kitchen cupboards are often opened, even though we close them. It happens with bedroom doors and the fridge door. I don't know if it's the same being or a different one. I believe the thing talking to me and the thing I saw is a mimic. I'm not sure what's opening the doors. That's my story. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this. I love your show. Keep up the great work. Sincerely, a loyal fan. That gave me chills. I'm like looking behind me and stuff. That's so scary. How did you go back up the stairs to look at it again? That's wild. I would have been out the front door, gone. Just a smoke trail behind me like in cartoons. I can't believe you went down, went back up to look at it again. It's still there and you're like, boy, I better go tell my boyfriend about this. He would have heard about it later when I wrote to him from a different continent. That's how scared I would have been if I saw something like that. So, good on you. And our last story of the evening is from Vincent. This happened a couple years ago, during the winter at the beginning of 2022. I'm a photographer as a side gig, and I regularly head out with my camera to explore and rediscover potential locations to hold photo sessions for clients, but also simply capture the world as it is to fill in the slow periods of business. I was bored one weekend and decided to head out to scout some new areas and revisit a few of my old haunts to see if they were still worth keeping on my map as session venues. I finally went to a couple small forest preserve areas I had learned about since moving to the area in 2020, visited a nature/historic center a few towns over that I'd used before, and made note of the way the tall grass was still able to withstand the snow, and poked through along a buried path and removed a location off my map due to signs being posted that it was now private property and trespassers were not allowed. After a few more stops, the sun was starting to set, and I decided to run by an old cemetery I used to frequent with a small group of friends, both as a spot of relaxation and as an amateur test of our ghost and paranormal hunting skills. I wanted to check on some of my favorite gravestones and a few of the beautiful monoliths that were still there to see how they were cared for and how time had treated them in the years since I last visited. This particular cemetery was one without a gate, although there was a fence to signify where the grounds officially started compared to the shoulder of the road. In my state, law dictates that a cemetery can be accessed at any time so long as a gate or pathway is open and unobstructed. These usually apply to older and abandoned spots where bodies are either no longer or very rarely interred. Seeing as there was no gate and only an open pathway that loops all the way to the back, against a tree line that follows along the left side entrance to the back of the cemetery, to the front via a separate exit, I carefully pulled in to avoid losing traction on the unplowed entrance and parked once I peaked the slight incline. Grabbing a snow brush and my camera with mounted flash, since the sun was rapidly setting, I made my way along the rows of headstones, poking through the snow, and cleaning along inscriptions to photograph and document the weathering names, dates, and epitaphs. As I made my way along the first of 2 columns of graves, from the front of the cemetery toward the back, I heard some faint rustling and snaps of twigs. Since the previous snowfall was wet and heavy, my first and only thought was the trees were no longer able to hold the weight of the snow. I brushed it off, literally and figuratively, since some snow had fallen on me from the large tree in the center of the cemetery, and continued my exploration and snapping photographs. As it became darker and darker, I noticed that the snaps and rustling branches were becoming more and more frequent, coming from a few different spots along the trees, along the side pathway where my car was parked, and near me at the part of the cemetery furthest from the street. I then started hearing crunching in the snow, slow and steady and deliberate, as if the snow was up past your ankle and you had to lift your leg up to take a proper step. Again, these noises were coming from along the total length of the tree line, sometimes seeming to originate from 3 individual locations simultaneously. At this point, I decided I was going to start back down the exit path that leads to the opposite opening in the fence from which I drove in, just to avoid walking along the tree line. I was becoming genuinely freaked out, in spite of my size and confidence that I could hold my own against your average individual. I'm 5'10" and was roughly about a solid 275 pounds at the time. I had made it about a fourth of the way back to my car when I started hearing voices and chuckles, sinister but hushed, loud enough for me to hear, but not to be fully coherent. I didn't care if someone was playing a prank on me, I wasn't going to stick around to find out. Slinging my camera over my head and across my body, I decided to plow myself through the snow, holding my snow brush as a makeshift weapon. The other footfalls and crunching snow sped up to match my pace, still seeming to be coming from multiple locations, but all honing in towards my car. I reached my passenger door and pressed the button on the handle to unlock it. I swung open the door, and as a security measure from the door being unlocked and open, my headlights turned on. Running toward me from the back tree line of the cemetery was a large figure dressed in all black with their hood up and some sort of face mask. I would guess one of those balaclavas that you would use for skiing or snowboarding. I slammed the door and locked before scrambling over the center console and gear shift to jump into my driver's seat. Not an easy feat given my individual size and the size of my Nissan Altima. Once I was in the driver's seat, I started my car and the headlights temporarily shut off while the engine started. Once they were back on, the figure was gone from the front of my car, but the interior light shut off, and I spied a shadow illuminated by my brake lights in my rearview mirror, as well as a shadow moving through the trees that ran along the driver's side of my car, just even with my front bumper. Not caring that there was someone behind me, only that I was scared out of my mind, I shifted the reverse and slammed my foot into the pedal. Once the reverse lights were on and my backup camera turned on, the figure jumped out of the way as I kicked up snow and gravel with my front tires and launched down the small decline to the opening in the fence. As my tires bounced my car onto the actual asphalt of the road, I glanced out my front windshield and spied multiple figures, way more than just the 3 I was hearing. They were all standing and just watching me, each wearing dark clothing and a balaclava. I could make out anger on the mask of their eyes, and the last I saw of them as I spun my wheel to aim my car along the road was one standing dead center where my car had passed the opening in the fence, with his hands raised and waving. While I barreled down the road and was catching my breath, I dialed the local police to make a report of what happened. The cop told me it was probably just a bunch of kids messing around on the weekend, and since no one was injured, and us being there was considered trespassing and no crime committed, there wasn't anything they could do about it. I hung up frustrated and angry and continued my way home, taking side streets for the scenic route, just to be 100% sure I wasn't being followed. To whoever decided it would be fun to hang out in a group and stalk a cemetery after sunset, I carry a knife on my person whenever my exploration keeps me out after dark. Thank you so much, Vincent. That is a terrifying run-in. I loved that one because it was fun to leave off on one that's not paranormal, that's just real life scary. So thank you so much, and thank you all for listening. If you'd like more of the show, you can follow the show on Patreon for ad-free episodes and bonus episodes. You can also follow the show on social media at scareyoutosleep. You can follow me personally at Shelby B. Novak on social media. Mostly stick around Instagram. But there is a very active Facebook page, including a spin-off page called Scare You to Eat, where we talk about food, because I love food. You can also find more of me in a less gentle setting on the Bloody Disgusting podcast with my co-host, Zena Dixon. I also just posted a video on social media. It's on the Bloody Disgusting Instagram as well as the as my personal one. But I was invited to the Academy Awards Museum, and I was so happy to go. I got to see a few screenings. If you've been seeing a lot of footage of Megan Fox doing like a rare appearance in that very beautiful beige gown or like nude gown with the red sparkles, I was there. It was so exciting seeing Jennifer's Body in a theater with her there. So yeah, I put a little like video. I got to interview their director of, oh boy, I forgot her title. Her name is Christina Ibarra. She's in charge of cool stuff at the Academy Museum, and it was just a wonderful time. So if you'd like to see that, it is on Instagram. And what else? I can't think of what else to tell you. Did I bake anything recently? No. I've been so busy. I've started working like at Bloody Disgusting and Cineverse with like not as fun things. Some of it's fun, some of it's creative and fun. You probably, if you listen not on Patreon or if you listen to some of the other shows on the network, you've probably heard my voice a lot reading different ads and things, which has been a lot of fun. But I have been doing a lot of administrative things, and so and you know, that's just, it's the economy. Everybody's got to make money, so I apologize. I haven't had as many bonus things come out on Patreon as I'd like. I will be working on that video I did of me decorating the little haunted house that I mentioned. I'm very excited about it. It turned out very cute. I did not get a very enthusiastic reaction from the people I know in real life about it, but that's okay. I hope you like it. Maybe it's really bad and ugly, and that's why it wasn't very enthusiastic, but I like it. I think it's very cute, and I've had it on display for Halloween, and I had fun making it, and I had fun trying to take video of it, making it. We'll see how it turns out. It's my first time doing video of me like doing any sort of craft, so we'll see. It'll be on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, so I'll let you know. You'll see if you follow me on social media when that's out. I'll post it everywhere, but look for that soon. Okay, I'm gonna go, and you're gonna go, and we're gonna go enjoy our Halloween evenings. Please be safe. Please, please, please be so safe this Halloween, and go get some sleep. Sweet dreams. This episode of Scare You to Sleep is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
From Bloody FM, step into a mysterious shop where every object has a sordid tale to tell.
You have plunged so deep into the depths of despair.
Meet the antique dealer and a rotating cast of the best in horror.
I didn't believe in stuff like this. This wasn't real.
Daddy's head exploded.
Mike Flanagan, Kate Siegel, David Desmulchin, Jocelyn Donahue, and more.
I don't know what you are, and I don't know what's going on here.
Hun, don't go to the 9th floor.
I have something I want you to see.
Immerse yourself as the darkness is brought to life through interactive stories, connecting you with the events in real time.
It is just so unbelievably fun.
Please don't kill me.
The antiquarium of sinister happenings and odd goings-on. No refunds, no exchanges. Experience it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts.